All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Before we get started, I'd like to start by just taking a moment of silence to remember our fallen heroes and reflect on our democracy, which was under attack 1 year ago today. Thank you. I also want to thank our community for their kind words, their support, their assistance throughout the past year and beyond, but particularly last year as we started this process when I arrived back in the police department, replacing a chief, transitioning to a new management team in some aspects. The support that I've received from our community has been second to none and well received, as well as from the officers of the police department. And I also want to take a moment to thank the officers for their incredible work, just incredible work in an unprecedented time, which is probably one of the most overused terms describing what we've been going through as a country with COVID. But they show up day in and day out and do this amazing work, and for all their efforts to get to do it all over again tomorrow, and we couldn't be any happier that they agreed to do so. So thank them as well. We are here today to talk about our 2021 crime stats, and we're joined by several partners, several members of law enforcement who will introduce themselves as we go around the table. I want to start, though, with my executive team. Dave?
David LaValle, Assistant Chief, Office of Neighborhood Policing.
Todd Bettison, First Assistant Chief, Office of Support.
Nazneen Mia, Crime Gun Intelligence Center Project Manager.
Warren Evans, Wayne County Executive.
Raphael Washington, Wayne County Sheriff.
Paul Vanderplow, Special Agent in Charge, ATF.
Josh Hawkshurst, Acting Special Agent in Charge, Detroit FBI.
Keith Krolczyk, I'm the Assistant Special Agent in Charge for ATF.
Owen Cipher, United States Marshal for the Eastern District of Michigan.
I'm Tim Reagan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in Charge for DEA here in Detroit.
Mike Shawn with the Michigan State Police.
Dawn Eisen, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan.
All right, well, again, thank you and congratulations, ma'am, on your appointment. And
Thank you so much.
Again, we're here today to talk about our crime stats. Many say that this is a thankless job, but I'm here to say to all of you, thank you. Thank you for your collaboration. This is what collaboration and partnership looks like. And certainly, we're going to be talking about numbers here in a moment that depict some decreases in some really critical areas of policing for the city of Detroit. But let me start by saying we are not in any way celebrating these numbers. The homicides, the shootings are still too high. And anytime you lose a person in this community, a mother has to bury a child, a husband has to bury a wife, or lose a husband, a wife losing a husband, a mother losing a child, one homicide is one too many. But we will talk about these numbers to reflect on what we've done in the past year, how the collaborations have worked, and build from that. I came back 6 months ago, as I indicated, to lead the department, and it's an honor and a privilege, and I take this role very, very seriously. We're happy to announce today that we closed 2021 with a 4% reduction in criminal homicides, a 9% reduction in non-fatal shootings, and an 18% reduction in robberies. These reductions illustrate the value of our efforts together as a collaboration during an unprecedented time in history. You look at what's happening around this country, you look at crime around this country, certainly we are happy to report these numbers, but again, not celebrating. We have much work to do. Cities across America have seen substantial increases in record crime. We're going to unpack these numbers a little bit more in a moment. AC LaValle, who's over our operations, will spend a little time going through and really unpacking how the numbers are impacting certain areas of the city to further explain them. But we took a proactive approach to crime, implementing a 5-point plan, which really focused on quality of life issues. And I want to thank the mayor. One of the things that helps is when your mayor gives you 4,000 hours of overtime to fight crime when you walk in the door. So that is not lost on me that was a tremendous help to what we were able to do. So Dave, if you would, just walk us through the numbers right now.
Sure, thanks, Chief. So the first slide we're looking at is the first 5 months of the year of homicides. And we started out the year almost immediately going above where we were last year. In the first 5 months, we had 23 more homicides than we did in 2020. And that was the most homicides we'd seen in the city for the period of January to May since 2013. And we saw a similar trend with non-fatal shootings. Immediately, they were much more than they were the previous year. We had 118 more non-fatal shootings for that 5-month period, and that was the most non-fatal shootings we had seen for that period since 2013. As the chief mentioned, when he got here in June, he implemented a 5-point plan, involved increased presence, strict noise enforcement, drag racing and drifting enforcement, parking lot and code enforcement, and most importantly, community engagement. One thing to point out were the major increases in police presence. As the chief mentioned, the mayor authorized about 4,000 hours of overtime per week. Also, an additional 2,000 hours every weekend for drifting and drag racing and speeding enforcement. That allowed us to continue our full staffing for 911 calls and for investigations. And officers were offered opportunities for overtime to work crowd control, all the various details that we put on to really increase our presence out on the street. We had deployed additional personnel where we knew crowds were going to gather, and we adjusted our deployment from weekend to weekend to address emerging areas. So after we put that plan in place, we started to see some significant reductions compared to the previous year. So on December 31st, we ended the year with 14 less homicides compared to 2020, and that's less homicides over the same period than in 2019. And we also saw the same trend with non-fatal shootings. On December 31st, we ended with 105 less non-fatal shootings compared to 2020. And so, go to the next. When you combine the two, in May, we had 141 more homicide and non-fatal shootings than we did in 2020. And after we increased our efforts, increased our police presence, increased the use of that overtime, we ended the year with a total of 119 less homicides and non-fatal shootings. So on the chart there, you see month-to-month comparison to the previous year, but the line that you see on the chart is where the difference is. So at one point mid-year, we were up considerably compared to the previous year. And through the efforts of every member of law enforcement in the region and on the Detroit Police Department, we were able to end the year lower. You know, as the chief said, it's not a reason to celebrate because we have homicides and non-fatal shootings that we have to deal with in the city. Ideally, we have none. But we think that the efforts that we put into place, we saw some positive effects from that, and it's something that we're going to continue throughout the coming year. Chief?
Thank you, AC. And the reason we have our partners here today is just to recognize, without you, this wouldn't be possible. This is not just us. This is our partnership. This is our collaboration, and we couldn't be more thankful for it. The reward for good work is more work, so we're going to be asking you for more work to help us keep this going and to make our city even safer. You know, the really impactful number is, you know, that 105. I mean, certainly the 14 homicides, you know, 14 less people being murdered in our city, but you know, clearly 105 people not being shot impacts that homicide number, right? I mean, a non-fatal shooting is a failed homicide. So if half of those numbers, those shootings had occurred, that homicide number it would likely be significantly higher than it is today. So it is the work, it's the collaboration, the VCRI, the Violent Crime Initiative that's happening with the county, and we could not be more appreciative of it. The Violent Crime Task Force, the state police, the FBI, the ATF taking our cases federally. None of this would be possible. And this collaboration could really serve as an example of what collaboration and partnerships look like. So again, I can't say thank you enough. I also want to talk about U.S. Marshals, Wayne County Sheriff's Department, and all the local agencies that help us apprehend these violent offenders. And as we look at this slide, and it unpacks the numbers a little bit more for us, and we go through statistical data looking at the 4% reduction in the homicides. We see an uptick in our rapes at 18%, which is very concerning. But what we had to do when we look at that is look at the previous year. So we looked at 20, we looked at 21, and obviously we had to go back and look at 19. And we thought it was important to look at 19 because 20 was such an anomaly year that the communities weren't normalized, right? I mean, they weren't doing what they normally do. There wasn't the opportunity for our victims to report crime. We had schools closed. We had social gatherings that were limited. And what we found when we looked at the 2019 numbers, they were consistent with the 2018 numbers. And when we look at 2021, 2021 was actually less than 2019. But because of the anomaly of 2020 with COVID, we didn't have the opportunity for the victims to report. So some of the things that we're doing that we'll get into later this year is really focusing on our victims and focusing on the education and how they can go about reporting criminal sexual conduct and giving them the comfort and the opportunity to do so. The reality of it is our numbers are likely to go up with this educational campaign, but that's okay because we want to make sure that each victim gets the justice that they're entitled to and they should have. So we'll be working continuously with that. We look at our robberies, which are down 17%, and again, that's DPD on patrol. That's the officers on foot beats. That's the state police running traffic in our community. That's the county that's assisting us in various initiatives throughout the city. Our drag racing detail. And the correlation with robberies is opportunity to rob. So you've got people who are in highly visible areas. You've got police officers who are highly visible, and it eliminates those opportunities. So we're going to continue down that path. And then we've got a 2% drop in burglaries. And as we go down our list, we see that the non-fatal shootings, we talked about the 9% reduction in that, and we've got a slight uptick in the carjackings, which we continue to work. And so at the end, we look at all the numbers with our teams, as indicated, the marshals, the sheriff's department, and other local agencies. 694 felony arrests, 110 firearms recovered. Federal prosecutions have resulted in a number of violent offenders being held accountable. 95 firearm-related arrests were accepted by the USA. 28 carjackings taken federally, fantastic. We're going to double that. And then our Regional Gun Intelligence Center hub, which has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, which allows us to track across multiple jurisdictions and has generated 2,525 investigative leads. All that together in our city this year, the Detroit Police Department with our federal partners and other agencies mentioned here today have put 7,800 guns on evidence. 7,800 guns on evidence. And that likely resulted in a number of people not meeting their demise. So that's just fantastic work. And you can't measure something that didn't happen in police work, but I can assure you, getting 7,000 guns off the street, there's likely a large number of funerals that did not have to happen. So thank you. DPD, Wayne County Sheriffs, Michigan State Police, and federal collaborations also assisted in this drifting and drag racing, which we're going to be incredibly focused. I know the team is tired of meeting on it, but we're getting ready early. We've got a four-wheeler problem. We've got a drag racing problem. We've got a drifting problem. We've learned from last year. State Police was there with us with their helicopter. Thank you. Need it again this year. 145 felony arrests, 109 firearms recovered, and 272 vehicles impounded. And that helicopter allowed us not to have to get into chases and didn't put our community at risk. And with that, ma'am, if you would do the honor, I'd like to turn it over to you for a few words. And again, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much, Chief. We will continue to collaborate and work with you, and you have our full support in reducing crime and improving the quality of life for the citizens of Detroit. As you mentioned, we adopted several cases for federal prosecution. Our Major Crimes Unit adopted 68 gun cases, and our Violent and Organized Crime Unit adopted 66 or arrested and charged nearly 66 defendants who were associated with gangs, groups, or violence, and we will continue to do that. My extended family, my friends, and all of the other citizens in Detroit deserve to enjoy this beautiful city, to walk in this beautiful city, and to live and work free from this excessive senseless violence, and we are committed to achieving that for them, and we stand with you.
Thank you very much. And who's next, Rudy? Yes.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Josh Hawkshurst. I'm the acting special agent in charge of the FBI. First off, I'd like to thank the men and women of the Detroit Police Department and our partner agencies. We all know it's been a really rough year for many, but their perseverance and dedication have risen above. So they've done some really excellent work in spite of some difficult times. So I'd like to speak with regard to our task force efforts. So the chief had spoken about our task forces here. I can say that having worked in Detroit for 16 years now, our task force efforts are second to none. And I think with those task forces, we're sending a loud and clear message to shooters, carjackers, and other violent offenders that this type of activity will be relentlessly pursued by our collective partnerships. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Chief, for the focus that you have for crime eradication. I mean, violent crime is a big part of it, and I'm going to speak to that in just a minute, but I'll be brief. And also to all of the local partners and federal partners that are a part of this. I mean, it doesn't work otherwise. And by that, I mean the focus that you had on drag racing and other things where there has not been an impetus and people have become more emboldened. If they're more emboldened about drag racing, they're more emboldened about shooting and a number of other things. And, you know, and I've always said that the only difference between homicides and non-fatal shootings is aim, and that ought not be the criteria. So we got to stop the shooting. I think you're doing a tremendous job of that. The Violent Crimes Reduction Initiative that has brought me into a part of this is something that the county has put 6 new prosecutors as a part of the initiative. And that it makes an awful lot of sense, not just bringing prosecutors who deal with these issues, but also co-locating those prosecutors so they're with homicide, so they're with the units that they work with. So it starts to break down some of the barriers that exist between, you know, both executive branch agencies, but they're not the same, and nor should they necessarily be. So that makes an awful lot of sense. The Violent Crimes Initiative, since its beginning, has arrested 1,800 and some people, 700 last year. I think that's huge. A number of guns have been confiscated, which is huge. And a number of serial rapists have been apprehended as a part of that number. So we're glad to be a part of it. Our resources will continue. And thanks for the opportunity. But again, thank you, Chief, because I think putting the whole package together is what's going to make Detroit a lot safer.
Thank you, sir.
Raphael Washington, Wayne County Sheriff, and thank you, Chief, for inviting me here to speak a little bit about the collaboration between the Sheriff's Department and Detroit Police Department, which I'm proud to say is we're working strong and we're working together, and it's all for the safety of the citizens of Wayne County and Detroit, City of Detroit. So I won't be redundant in speaking to the Violent Crime Initiative, Reduction Initiative. The CEO has already done that. But just want to re-emphasize that when we talked about drag racing and drifting and the things that we were able to do with you, Chief, and your officers this summer, I think was huge. We got calls. We were with you all every other week in the summer, in spring and summer and fall, dealing with drag racers and the drifters. And we all know that if you don't take care of the little things early, then they become big things. And so we were happy to be out there with you. We'll continue to be out there cutting the drag racing as much as we can, stopping the drifting. I had pastors from churches in the city and community leaders and judges and lawyers calling about drag racing and drifting in their area, in front of their homes. It was amazing what happened this summer with drag racing and drifting. I'm happy to hear you say that it's going to be a real emphasis put on cutting that out this summer in the city, and I just want you to know that we're here to help. As I always say, we're stronger together, and we're going to be here for you. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us, Chief. We've always been a great partnership down here in this area. Usually when I go out state or into different conferences, some of the pettiness that goes on in different parts of the country when it comes to law enforcement, you just don't see that here. So we're very fortunate that we do work together. I know that we've talked about the task forces and, the homicide task force and a lot of our detectives that are working all the time. But I want to talk a little bit about the guy and the gal that's driving that blue car, the one that people don't necessarily want to see in the rearview mirror at times. Those troopers have been through a lot this last year, 2 years with COVID and some of the different things that we've seen out there. So I want to thank them for the work that they're doing out there on our freeways, working these drifting details. And then finally, speeders beware. That is something that we've seen across the state and across the country, talking to different state police organizations around here. We're killing each other on these freeways just because people are having trouble with staying off that gas pedal. We're going to be working on that in the city of Detroit and around the state this year to try to bring that back to some reasonable driving experiences across the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, did you?
Hi, Chief. Thank you again for inviting us. We've always had a strong partnership with the Detroit Police Department. We've always worked very close to reducing violent crime, and specifically violent gun crime. At this time, I would like to formally introduce our new special agent in charge who just reported to Detroit, Mr. Paul Vanderplow.
Thanks, Keith. Thank you, Chief. I will echo what everybody else in this room has said and actually double down from what my predecessor has brought. We are going to continue what we do, is try to eradicate violent crime through the use of firearms with your assistance and our partners, and we're going to be there with you as well. So good luck in this next year, and we'll be there with you the whole time.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. And I just want to highlight for the community that we're going to use all our resources. It's about collaboration. This is not about any one person. Our community deserves safety. They deserve to be able to walk the streets and enjoy their yards and not be the victim of gun violence and carjacking and drag racing, as you indicated, in your front yard. I mean, this is an unacceptable condition to live in. We're going to do everything in our power constitutionally and professionally to ensure that they have the opportunity to enjoy our community. And we're using technology, and we're using really smart folks like the crime analyst that I have sitting to my right, civilian analysts and there's many more like her, who are much smarter than I, that use technology and putting together a whole lot of things that I can't explain or right now, but help us fight crime a smart way and tracking the digital footprints that we all leave when we do certain things. And so we're going to use all of our tools, and we're going to make sure that our city is safer. And I thank all of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here today. And with that, Rudy, we'll take any questions. I'm sorry. Sorry, we have one more. Dave, introduce him.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I went to him. I'm
It's all
sorry.
right, Chief. Owen Cipher, the United States Marshal here in Eastern Michigan. I'd just like to say thank you for your continued partnership, the Detroit Police Department's partnership with the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force here in Eastern Michigan, Detroit, and all of our suburban area. I'd also like to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office, all of our state, local, and federal partners that are here today. Law enforcement really is about a team effort, not just amongst all of us here at the table, but also with the community. And it's the Marshal Service mission to make this city and our community a safer place. So I'd just like to reaffirm our dedication to our task forces and to all of our task force partners, and just say I look forward to working with you in the future, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I'll wrap it up, Tim Reagan from DEA. So, hey, I started Monday. Real quick, Chief, you said it, quality of life, right? That's what we're all looking for. That's what I focus on, and that's what the men and women over at 431 Howard Street are focused on. So we'll continue to present, hopefully, the best cases we can to the U.S. Attorney's Office to get these people that are killing our family members to where they belong. So look forward. We'll be tight with ATF. We're FBI. I mean, it's going to be a good year. We'll get the numbers down.
Well, I appreciate it, sir. And note to self, you don't ever want to overlook the DEA and the ATF and the marshals, right? Marshals are going all around the world for you, and you forget them. So thank you. I apologize.
All right, Chief.
Hi, everybody. Jessica Dupnack with Fox 2. Chief, couple questions for you as I'm representing everybody today.
Okay.
First question, that number, 7,800 guns. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, what changed this year, or what are you doing different to get that amount off the streets?
Well, you know, the reality of it is, you know, that number's pretty consistent. I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about guns and who should have them, who shouldn't. Here's what I'm focused on: illegal guns, guns in the wrong hands, guns in the hands of kids, and people being put in jeopardy by impulse decision making and someone with a gun in their hand. You know, we just had a situation a couple days ago where a neighbor shot a neighbor, you know, over a parking spot. You know, and this is a CPL holder, and so, you know, regardless of where you at with guns, responsible gun ownership is imperative. So the unfortunate reality is we're on target to bring in another 7,000 guns this year.
Last couple of years, there has been some conflict across the country with police and the community. What did you see in 2021 in terms of community outreach and that kind of thing, and maybe repairing some of the relationships that have suffered over the years?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a wonderful community, and, you know, our community helps us, and we couldn't do what we do without them. You know, we couldn't. And so it's the tips, it's working with us, it's trusting us, and we have to make sure that we recognize the importance of that bond that we have with the community and do everything we can to enhance it. You know, it's been well talked about what's happened in this country. You know, we had some major flashpoints over the past couple years, and certainly as a law enforcement officer, we have to always be cognizant of how we present ourselves and how important that relationship is. My motto here, and I've shared, and everyone that works for me follows it, and that is, it is an absolute privilege to wear a badge, absolute privilege to serve this community. It is not a right. And in order to participate in that privilege of wearing a badge and serving a community, there are certain responsibilities that you must adhere to. There is no compromise in that. And that doesn't mean getting a gun, you can compromise those rules or those ethics or the Constitution. That's not going to happen. So we can do this constitutionally, responsibly, and we're going to do so, and I'm going to require it. And we're doing a very good job at it.
Last question from me. You touched a little bit about on drag racing and some of the efforts this year. What are some other things or new different things we'll see this year that you guys are efforting?
Well, I won't tell you everything, but we're going to look at what worked last year and continue to do that and expand on it. The team it's already working on how we can deploy and how we're going to hit those areas that we know using technology where people gather before they gather. Because the idea behind this is that hopefully it doesn't happen. I mean, we're not looking to be there in a covert way so that people do something and now we arrest them. We're not looking for numbers. If you see us and you decide not to do it, we win. You win. Go home. Don't drag race. Don't get in an accident. Don't use a gun to resolve a simple dispute. We all win if we do that. So visibility, community engagement, foot beats. I think engaging with the community is important. We did a lot of foot beats last year. We're going to do a lot more this year. And high visibility interaction.
Thank you.
Hi there. Bina Shamith from Michigan Radio. I had just a few questions for you as well. You didn't get into arrest data, but we've been looking at some of those numbers and found that there has been a significant increase in gun-related arrests, and I wonder if you could just tell me about the thinking behind that, about more arrests. It seems like they've tripled over the 2020.
Well, again, you know, 2020 is an anomaly year. I mean, the communities weren't performing in a traditional manner. People weren't as visible. People were at home. You know, there was a time when the virus first hit that we thought we would be locked in a home and had to have a pass to leave. So things changed when we emerged from that. A lot of people emerged with weapons. When they start to congregate, a lot of people started to congregate with weapons. I mean, it's been well documented, the number of people we've run into in certain areas of our city. And where crowds are, some people decide to bring guns to crowds. And The unfortunate reality is it happens, and that's where we see our numbers increase. But if you look at 2020, I caution you because 2020 did not perform as 2019 or 2018. And I don't have the 19 numbers here with me right now, but I know that the uptick was because the community behavior was similar to what it was in 19.
And just wanted to ask you to elaborate a little. You mentioned earlier about kind of the focus on gun enforcement and how that plays into a reduction in gun-related crimes. Can you just explain a little bit more of your thinking on that?
Well, it's behavior modification is what we're looking for. It's not, we're not targeting any individual with a gun. What I'm talking about is people who are making an independent decision to use a gun to resolve a simple dispute. You're on a freeway, you get cut off in traffic, you shoot out your window. You're having a problem, a domestic issue, you're shooting someone. You're having conflict at a club and you decide to resolve it because someone stepped on your shoes by shooting them. Those are decisions. And so what we're saying is we're not out focusing on guns. What we're focusing on is when people are making bad decisions, holding them accountable. If it's an arrestable offense, if it's disorderly conduct, breaking up that disturbance, and if that person happens to have a weapon, then taking the appropriate enforcement action.
Yeah, last question here. Just wanted to know a little bit more about what that enforcement looks like, because we've heard from some advocacy groups that people feel that they're being stopped more and more for kind of minor traffic offenses, asked if they've had a gun. I'm just wondering if that's part of the thinking of this kind of enforcement.
I mean, I've already stated that, this department was under consent judgment for over 11 years, okay? We have a lot of metrics in place to ensure that we are constitutionally policing our community. But I think we also have to look at the amount of gun violence we have in our community. And the fact that we have the gun violence means that people are using guns to make poor choices. So we are going to encounter more guns if people are using guns to make poor choices, if we're recovering 7,000 guns a year and putting them on evidence. We have to look at this whole process in totality. But if the question is if there's a renewed effort or to target, no. What we're trying to do is change behavior, and hopefully people make better decisions. If they make the better decisions, they don't have to encounter the police. That's great. That we all win. But we don't want kids getting shot in their front yard. We dropped off Christmas gifts to a young child who was paralyzed because she was shot in the back by someone who was having a dispute on her block, not with her, but with someone else. And she was riding by on a bicycle and was shot in her back. And she will never walk again. And so, we look at her and we give her a Christmas toy, but she will never have the opportunity to do some of the things that she had in her dreams. And it happens every day. And the unfortunate reality is, at some point in the next 30 days, I'll be talking about a heinous act in this community. So I appreciate and respect what you're saying, and I certainly do this work with an eye on what our responsibilities are to this community. And I assure you it will be constitutional. But I also have a responsibility to the men and women that live in our community who have a right to safety. They have a right to come home from the grocery store and not be accosted in their driveway for whatever they have on them, or the people who were shot already in 2022, many of which had absolutely nothing to do with the offender who shot them.
Hey, Chief, good to see you. Bryce Huffman with Bridge Detroit. I just have 3 questions here for you. Could you provide a bit of an update on the Nikita Williams shooting, and if there's going to be some mental health resources that are part of this discussion as we move forward?
This discussion today is about our crime stats. I'm not prepared to discuss an update on that shooting at this time.
Well, given that you might not be prepared to discuss the other 2, but I'll ask them anyway. I've heard that there are some plans to expand the ShotSpotter gun shot detection system. Is there any plan to move forward with that, or a timeline for when that expansion might happen?
Yeah, we're looking at what ShotSpotter has produced for us, and we're talking through an expansion in that right now. But timeline, we're not prepared to release a timeline at this time.
Cool. And then just last question. I've heard a rumor about a $50 million freeway camera system. Is there any truth to that, or plans to implement something like that?
We don't have numbers to it. We don't have a freeway. Here's what we've talked about. We've talked about the fact that there are a lot of people being shot on freeways in Metro Detroit, not just Detroit, okay, or around the state. And we saw a number of incidents last year. Baby Bryson leaving a basketball game with his mom, dad, little baby, murdered. Nothing to do with the person who decided to shoot into the vehicle. Shooting not just baby Bryson and killing him, but injuring his brother. So as you can imagine, the worst day of that family's life. And when we look at this and we look at the behavior that's happening, and we've seen some success in green lights, and we actually find sometimes that it appears, right, that some people may be making decisions to resolve disputes in different areas because of the visibility of the green light. And so when you look at all of us using freeways in all of our communities, what would something like that look like if it provided a layer of safety? And it wasn't used for facial recognition. It's not used for speeders. It's not used for anything but violent crime. Would that cause different decisions? And that's where we are in that discussion right now.
Thank you.
Hi, Chief. I just have one, and thank you for the opportunity. When you talk about gun violence in general, Oxford on everyone's mind still, it has led to the renewed debate in Lansing about gun laws as far as universal background checks, gun-free zones, et cetera. Often law enforcement doesn't delve into this. I guess my question is, should law enforcement have a voice? I'm curious if you would care to share an opinion in regard to the need legislatively to help siphon off the numbers of guns, whether there's effective legislation that could happen, whether that's not your focus by intent. I'd be interested in what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I tend to shy away from politics, but let me say this. I think we have to give a voice to the victims as well. I mean, we talk a lot about right to own guns, but we need to look at everything, and we need to give a voice to all parties, including the people who are victimized by senseless gun violence in communities like Detroit. All right. Thank you. Thank you all.